and from what I remember, it says specific to golf course in the text itself, so I'm not sure that
Yeah,
it's
I think it's still
difference.
just a text amendment to the land use bylaw and specifically to that, but I don't necessarily think that needs to be in the business part of
Okay.
it. Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. So all those in favor of the agenda, just one more time, please. Thank you. So we only have the one item. I'll open it up if there's any disclosure of conflict of interest from any of the members. Nothing? Great. You were also provided a copy of the minutes from our February 14th, 2023 meeting. Hopefully you've had an opportunity to read those over, and if there are any errors or omissions, we'll take them now. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve. Councillor Granger, thank you. Councillor Killam, thank you. All those in favor? Oh no, that's not an all in favor. Sorry. I'm out of the groove here. It's been a while since we've done this. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Thank you. So we only have one item of business, as I said, and Ms. Ullman is going to take us through that. So I will turn on your mic, and it's all yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a land use bylaw text amendment to permit a one-unit dwelling as an accessory use for the residence of an owner or operator of a golf course in the commercial recreation P1 zone. So the property that triggered this application is located at 2075 Lakewood Road in Centerville, and it's the Eagle Crest Golf Course. So this is a text amendment. The purpose of the commercial recreation zone is to allow the development of commercial and recreation facilities such as golf courses, campgrounds, and other similar uses. This text amendment would permit a one-unit dwelling as an accessory use for the residents of the owner or operator of the golf course. And if it is approved, the amendment would be general and applied across all the county, not just for this specific golf course. So there are 5 golf courses within the county that this text amendment would apply to, including in Centerville, North Alton, Berwick Heights, New Minas, and Kingston. The owner of the Eagle Crest Golf Course, Osborne Ward, applied for this land use bylaw text amendment to mediate property damage and vandalism that has been occurring during non-operating hours because they have no staff on site at this time. Having a residence on the golf courses will allow for better security and discourage people from entering the property during non-operating hours. So this is an approximate location of the Eagle Crest Golf Course, which is the property that triggered this this amendment. This is the golf course, Eagle Crest, the subject property that triggered this application. So as you can see, it is within the commercial recreation zone, surrounded by agriculture to the south, west, and east, and then to the north there is the residential one unit and the residential mixed density uses. And the property does sit within the agricultural designation, and the commercial recreation zone is a zone permitted in all designations. Therefore, it is within keeping with the intent of the municipal planning strategy in terms of future land use designations. So for the enabling policy, 5.3.2 of the municipal planning strategy, council shall amend the text of a land use bylaw provided the proposal meets the general criteria for amending the land use bylaw set out in section 5.3 development agreements and amending the land use bylaw. In addition to the general criteria, the policy, so we reviewed the vision, goals, and objectives of the municipal planning strategy for the commercial recreation zone and the designation to determine if the addition of a dwelling accessory to a golf course located in the commercial recreation zone as a permitted use is consistent with the planning framework established by council. So the policy review for the commercial recreation zone, Council shall, 2.7.11, establish the commercial recreation zone intended for areas within any designation that contain or are intended to contain commercial recreation facilities and uses, indoor recreation uses, and high-impact recreation uses, and with predictable land use impacts, including but not limited to golf courses, campgrounds, gun ranges, or similar uses. And 2.7.12, council shall permit in the commercial recreation zone golf courses, campgrounds, and uses with a similar level of impact and complementary uses. So the land use bylaw sets out the detailed regulations for each zone, and council recognizes that revisions may be necessary to respond to changing development issues and other specific development proposals. Other uses within the commercial recreation zone, like campgrounds and not-for-profit camps, currently already allow or permit an accessory dwelling for the residence of owner or operators. So this enables those property owners to monitor the premises when it's closed to the public. So this use currently is not permitted on golf courses. The municipal planning strategy recognizes that the uses proposed for some zones are reasonable to permit throughout the municipality. Policy 3.0.32 states, council shall permit the following zones within all designations. And item C on that list is commercial recreation zone. So this is consistent with, this is a similar use to campgrounds. So it may benefit, the golf courses would benefit from having the presence of an on-site, outside of normal business operation staff on hand. That way they can mediate any issues that they're seeing after normal operating hours. So it is staff's opinion that it is consistent to consider permitting a one-unit dwelling for the owner or operator of the golf course as an accessory use. For policy review for tourism and economic development, the economic development goal to sustain the municipality's diverse economic base and encourage entrepreneurship and innovation. And the economic development objective is to cultivate a resilient economy supporting business development while maintaining environmental awareness. 2.5.11, council shall permit a variety of opportunities for visitor-oriented businesses in locations and at a scale consistent with the intent of the zones enabled within the agricultural, resource, and shoreline designations, as well as the historic hamlet of Grand Prairie Zone. So by enabling this text amendment to allow a one-unit dwelling for the caretaker or operator of the golf course to be permitted throughout the county, we are promoting and supporting local business owners. They will be able to employ someone that will be able to provide security during non-operating hours, saving many golf courses costs in damages and thefts. So for the policy review, because this application is for a text amendment to the land use bylaw, these criteria have been assessed in a more general way with regard to the impacts resulting from the general addition of an accessory dwelling to a golf course. Staff are of the opinion that this amendment will not generate any negative impacts. So this is where we are at. We're at the Planning Advisory Committee. A virtual public information meeting was held remotely in August 2021, and the video was placed on the planning application website for viewing. We have received no comments or input from the public at this time, and property owners within 500 feet were notified about the public information meeting and would again be notified of the public hearing. So staff is recommending a positive recommendation.
Thank you. So are there any questions of clarification from the committee for Ms. Ullman? Sorry. Councilor Granger.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I was just wondering if there's any restrictions or guidelines on the size of the dwelling that's allowed to be there?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Granger, there wouldn't be. It would only be able to be a one-unit dwelling, but there's no limit on the scale or size of that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gagnon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a few questions because I'm not clear on a land use bylaw text amendment rather than a development agreement for this specific site. It seems that this is in response to vandalism happening on this site, but we're going to apply this to all golf courses. And I don't know if all golf courses are in agricultural zones, underlying land use agricultural zones, or if they're on other types of zones, and then how permitting a dwelling on all the golf courses affects how that underlying zone's equality, if you wish, requirements for dwellings are. So I'd like some clarification on that. So why not an amendment, development agreement instead of an amendment? And then what does the underlying zone come to play in terms of being equal with what the other residents who are in that zone?
I think Ms. Mosier wants to weigh in on that one.
Through you, Madam Chair, and thank you to Ms. Gagnon. So in order to enter into a development agreement, the municipal planning strategy needs to have a policy enabling council to consider a specific proposal by development agreement. We don't have a policy that enables accessory dwellings for this type of use. I would also point out that the commercial recreation zone does permit accessory dwellings for camps and for
Campground.
what's the other use? And campgrounds, right. So uses that tend to have activity, council in the past had determined that an accessory dwelling was not unreasonable. Given the large size of golf courses, staff are of the opinion that given the opportunities for vandalism and mischief, that an accessory dwelling on a golf course is also not unreasonable. But I would point out that the underlying zone is the commercial recreation zone, not the agricultural zone. It is in the agricultural district within which the commercial recreation zone is enabled, but it's not in the agricultural zone. And this golf course has been established for many years. So that this would fall into an area that's classified in the statement of provincial interest as an area that's considered an exclusion to agricultural protection. We don't have all that many golf courses, but given the large size of them, we don't believe that there's any potential negative impacts of permitting a one-unit dwelling on any given golf course within the municipality due to their large size.
So to follow up, please, Madam Chair. So the size of golf courses is a factor in, I guess, them being a golf course, I guess, for the, you're not talking about some small golf courses, 9-hole kind of thing, and then they can have a dwelling. I'm asking because what if the business closed out? I know this one's been a while here, but I come from provinces where many golf courses have closed down, and you're left with these big pieces of land. So because there isn't an underlying agricultural one, even if the rest around it and the future land use designation says agricultural one, if that golf course closes with a dwelling on it, for example, a rezoning would have to happen or it would have to reopen as a golf course? Like, what would happen if it closes and that resident owner is living there? What type of zoning are we ending up with? And I guess all that implies.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Ms. Gagnon, the zoning would stay the same. Once the dwelling is there, it's considered a residential use under the Municipal Government Act. So there wouldn't necessarily need to be a golf course there in order for the house to stay there, and a golf course wouldn't necessarily need to reopen. But if a new purchaser did want to operate it as a golf course, they would not need to rezone or anything. They would just need to come in to take out permits in their name to reestablish the use. The use is permitted in the zone. So,
And if they didn't want to restart it as a golf course, but just keep it as a private property for themselves, then they could
that would be permitted
within that zoning.
Yes.
Okay, for now.
Councillor Killam.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question: is there anything in the future with respect to expanding the growth or the boundaries of the growth center of Centerville, which it aligns quite nicely with any future growth. I know that there's been talk over the past of expanding it to the Lakewood Road, intersection there, and I know it takes in some agricultural land, but I'm just wondering if there's anything in the future that could be thought of in that respect. I know in many other areas you see really a community, a retired community living right next to the golf courses, and I know this is a step in offering the owners the ability to live on that property. And that's, to me, is positive. I'm going to support this to go to the public hearing. So, but those are kind of some thoughts that are going through my head. Thank you.
Ms. Mosier?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Killam, expanding the Centerville growth center boundary is not a matter that forms part of this application. Further, the municipal planning strategy identifies the criteria the council should use for expanding growth center boundaries, and with regard to future growth center boundary expansions, the municipal planning strategy has also identified 2 priority areas for expansion, being North Alton, south of the town of Kentville, and the lands north of the growth center of Cambridge as the next strategic expansions. So I don't see the growth center of Centerville being expanded in the near future, of course subject to council's direction, but the municipal planning strategy has established those criteria and those areas as the next on the list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Killam. Ms. Gagnon?
Chair? Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I guess where I'm still a little, I'm not sold on the, that this meets municipal planning strategy, that in points 6.2 and 6.3 that were in the report, and that it talks about the economic of that zoning, CP, P1, I mean, but we're talking about a dwelling on that zoning, and I don't find that staff has showed me how
I think you're
permitting
getting a bit
dwelling.
into debate.
Oh, is that in debate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is strictly questions.
Okay, so property tax-wise, once a dwelling is on this type of zoning, does that change this person's zoning tax base for the residence as a dwelling being on a country club golf course?
Mr. Voigt?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, property assessment is not within the control of the municipality. The assessment department of the province is going to determine what that dwelling will be assessed at. So I'll leave it to them whether or not they'll consider that a straight residential use or commercial use, but that would be determined by them. The other part that I wanted to touch on is when you look at the P1 zone, there are a number of permitted uses already permitted in a P1. So take your example of what if the golf course is no longer operational. As of right, fixed roof overnight accommodation can be established in that zone, so we could be looking at a hotel. So from an impact perspective, one dwelling is far less.
Okay.
Councillor Killam?
Just another question that I was thinking about. If the golf course closes, any golf course closes in Kings County, what would be the position of that land as far as zoning?
Ms. Mosier?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Killam, the zoning would remain the same, similar to what Ms. Javrik just described. There are a number of other uses permitted in the P1 zone, including agriculture, campground, community facilities, drive-in theaters, fixed roof overnight accommodations, so hotels, motels, Airbnbs, golf courses, as we know, and a few other little uses. So, well, not little, they're P1, so they tend to be large. So that property could be redeveloped under the same zoning, or it could be rezoned for another use consistent with the underlying designation, as Ms. Gagnon has touched on.
So it wouldn't be set back into so-called agricultural land that would be restricted totally for any building?
And, well, it is in the this specific golf course, again, this is just a triggering property, but the amendment is to the text of the land use bylaw. But for a golf course located within the agricultural designation, the options for rezoning would be limited to those zones enabled within the agricultural designation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gagnon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So do we have any campgrounds that are in zonings where dwellings are not permitted as of right? So for example, I'm thinking of the forest natural resources zoning, where would that happen, or how would that work?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Ms. Gagnon, the resource or N1 zone does permit dwellings as of right. The only zone that does not, the only zones that do not permit dwellings as of right are some of our commercial zones within growth centers. So that would not be a matter under consideration for this golf course. The agricultural zone does not permit non-farm dwellings as of right. And the environmental constraints O1 zone does not permit dwellings as of right. Otherwise, all other zones, as far as I'm aware, permit dwellings.
So to our knowledge, none of the golf courses are in these other zones where a dwelling would be prohibited.
All of our golf courses are in the commercial recreation or P1 zone.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any more lights. So the motion that's before us, or the recommendation that's before us, is the Planning Advisory Committee recommends that Municipal Council give first reading to and hold a public hearing regarding a land use bylaw text amendment to permit the development of a one-unit dwelling accessory to golf courses in the commercial recreation P1 zone as described in Appendix C of the report dated April 17, 2023. Do I have a mover? Councillor Allen? Kate? Sorry. Is there any debate? Ms. Gagnon?
I'm talkative today. Okay, so the question I had earlier, or debate, was just being that it's a land use bylaw text amendment applying to all the golf courses, I just didn't feel that it was sold to me, the municipal planning strategy arguments for the dwelling aspect. I do get the P1 zoning, but that's already there. So I'm wondering from the municipal strategy regarding dwelling, how is making a land use bylaw for this text amendment for all golf course contributing to the municipal planning strategy? I'm just not too clear on that. The report itself didn't sell me. I had a hard time figuring out what it is exactly that is adding to the municipal planning strategy to make it a land use bylaw for dwellings on the golf courses. Because it was always referencing the commercial recreation P1 zone, which is already there. So it's the dwelling aspect. What's the argument for the dwelling aspect in meeting the municipal planning strategy, I guess is where I'm still sort of unsure.
Mm-hmm. I don't usually allow, sorry. Yeah, that was a question that I should have put forward in clarification, so. That wasn't what you were saying earlier. Yeah, you were making an argument earlier, and it wasn't a question, so. So I would assume that you're not in favor, and perhaps you can clarify why you're not in favor. Oops.
Am I on? Okay, okay. It was more, I could see the dwelling for campgrounds because there's people there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's campfires, people can be drinking alcohol, and things can get out of hand. So I can see how campgrounds get that having a dwelling in place can be safety, and if it's camps and stuff like that, like scouts or stuff, again, you're dealing with people there 24/7. I find it a little harder on a golf course. I find the vandalism, I mean, the argument wasn't made that vandalism is a chronic problem among all our golf courses. It seems to be specific to this property, which is why I'm just hesitant on land use bylaw that applies to everything, not just this property, in that sense. And then, like I said, I've seen a lot of golf courses close in my time, and it doesn't necessarily, I just don't necessarily see the dwelling as an accessory use, like if the accessory use is stuck to the golf course, it's not the golf course anymore, how different is it from the land use designation that's underneath, or that's somewhere there in the future land use planning, in that sense, that there's accessory to the golf course. Golf course closes, it becomes just a residence with hundreds of acres of property on it, you know. So just trying to figure it out from that point of view, and from the point of view that, like I say, I didn't find the arguments were being made for selling the dwelling. It was selling me the commercial recreation P1 zone as meeting the municipal planning strategy, but not putting a dwelling across all golf courses, across all land use designations there. So that's really where I wasn't good.
Thank you. Mr. Morris?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to state that I am in favor of the motion. I think that allowing a dwelling is reasonably consistent with the uses that are allowed. I think when I look at the fact that campgrounds and camps are allowed to have one dwelling, I think that's reasonable, and I think it would be as well on a golf course. When I look at as staff mentioned, the fact that fixed roof overnight accommodations are permitted in the P1 zone, which would be a much greater impact than one unit dwelling. I think the limitation currently of not being able to have anyone essentially live on the property is quite prohibitive to a golf course. So I think it's reasonable that there is at least one staff member, for example, that could live on the property for various reasons. So I'm in favor.
Thank you. Ms. Gagnon?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Morrison. I do agree in the sense that I did not know either you could put a hotel on there until we came to the meeting. So it wasn't clear enough in the reports that we received, but here I can see if you can build a hotel there, obviously somebody could stay in a hotel 24 hours a day there. So that makes more sense now. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further comments? I'll just throw out there that I'm in favor of this. I think that I think we should allow golf courses the right to have people live on them to look after their interests. They're large pieces of land that would be very hard to keep track of if there wasn't someone there all the time. I know that there are issues of four-wheelers and things like that go across property, especially down away from the clubhouses and stuff like that. So I think that having someone live there 24/7, 365 is probably a good idea, just to protect their interests. So I am in favor. So there is no more comments. So I'll call the question. All those in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. So as I said, that is our one item. Is there any other business to be brought forward before our meeting today? Wow. Okay. We have no public with us. And the date of our next meeting is May 9th, 2023, 1 p.m. in these chambers. If there's nothing else to be brought forward, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Ms. Friars, Councillor Allen, thank you. All those in favor? Surprise, surprise, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Ullman.